Talking Rams, undrafted free agents, the NFL draft, the messages sent in the draft, and remembering Norm Van Brocklin and North Dallas DT Monroe. I'm Joe Terozzi, and this is RamView for May the 2nd, 2022. And welcome. It's Monday. It's past the draft. We're in another phase of the season again. And how did the Rams do? I don't know how you thought they did. I thought they did great. I think one of the things we're seeing with the Rams, while I don't believe they've established this themselves, but I think they're buying into it, is more and more. And when you see the players they drafted, is what you're seeing is not necessarily a dependence on the numbers that come out of combines or the athleticism of players that we're seeing. Because honestly, how important is it that your right guard runs a 4.5, right, 40, right? And I think some of these things the Rams have done in the past where they said, you know what, we don't need to worry about this. We're going to take Jordan Fuller in the 6th round if nobody else is going to take him, and we're going to make him a starter. And if guys don't grade out the way the establishment has graded them, then the Rams are going to do something a little different. And I think other teams are buying into it. And I think what we're seeing is more football players being drafted than just super athletes. And that's always the rub, huh? There's always the workout monster, the combine killer. And that's what they were worried about with Trayvon Walker, that maybe he was just a workout guy. Maybe he was a combine superstar, but maybe not a football player. But then again, when you see what half the state of Georgia drafted on draft day, draft weekend, it's you have to wonder, like, if I was a football player in Georgia and I didn't get drafted, I'd feel like, what's wrong with me? Because there's a lot of talent there on that Georgia Bulldog team, and maybe Trayvon Walker didn't rack up the stats because there were so many guys around him and such. So one of the things we're going to look at here, we talked briefly about the draft as a whole. People like the Lions draft. In fact, I just got a text from a friend saying everyone's talking about the Lions draft. And that's the one that's kind of interesting because you want to see how this year's season goes and how last year's draft has progressed. And then you want to see how this year's draft does for the Lions because of Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes was one of the leaders in the Rams front office, and he took the GM job. And the reason we got Logan Bruss is because as a minority, he signed. The Rams got 2 third-round picks, and so we want to see how the Lions do. They're really interesting to me. But as far as just watching the draft, there's a lot of teams that everyone is going to say they did well. But for me personally, every time I saw Baltimore come up and pick, I was just like, wow, the Ravens. What I loved about the Ravens is when they're making decisions, and I think this speaks to who Lamar Jackson is they're making decisions to get their team better as opposed to accommodating their superstar quarterback. While you want to give your superstar quarterback weapons, and they've built their offense around Lamar Jackson, they also said, we got to take care of the whole team. And their first 3 picks, Kyle Hamilton, I shared that on Friday after the Thursday selection. He's one of my favorite players. Tyler Linderbaum, I thought that was a great pick, and that helps Lamar Jackson at center for 10 years. And then to come back and get David Ojabo, the edge from Michigan, after he tore his Achilles, and to see him get drafted was just marvelous. And if he develops, then they've got something really special there in Baltimore. I'm not a huge Ravens fan, but what I loved it was they kept looking at what's going to make the team better and not accommodating their quarterback, as I believe we're seeing in Arizona. I like the Baltimore draft even better than I like the Jets draft. You know, the Jets had a lot of talent they drafted, right? But the only one I really trust of their top 4 that I really, really trust right now, for now, is Breece Hall out of Iowa State. He was taken number 36th overall. Just watching Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, great players. But I just didn't like some of the demeanor I saw. It was about the show. It was about the swag, and we just got to see them produce, and likely they will produce. I like them getting Jermaine Johnson at 26 overall. He dropped, but it'll be interesting to see with those 3 guys in terms of, is there some attitude? Is there something going on with them? But Breece Hall looks like he's going to come ready to play. I like him the best, but that's why I rate the Jets draft less than Baltimore's. The Eagles, again, you can't go wrong with Georgia. Their first pick was Jordan Davis. Their third pick was Nakobe Dean, and they got him late. So they're getting first-round talent at a third-round price. So they had a great draft, and they took Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. So they had a good draft. I liked all the picks for the Bolts, for the Chargers, and so I thought, wow, they're doing really well. They're on the biggest holdback for the Chargers, and Charger fans know this, is your ownership. Is the Spanoses are bums. I just think they are. They don't even belong in the same building with a Kroenke, but there they are, and they've got a GM and a head coach, and I think quarterback. They've got most of the equation put in place, and I'm anxious to see what takes place. The Cardinals draft, whatever. I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with the Hollywood Brown deal. Let's make Kyler happy. And Hollywood Brown is a very average receiver. We established that on Friday when we were talking. And I think Kyler Murray, who can make big splashes, is an average to good quarterback. I just don't trust him, and I wouldn't build my team around him. The 49ers, the one team that still scares me in the NFC West, drafted Jake Jackson out of USC, and he could thrive there opposite of Boza. I get the Bozas mixed up, right? Someone says Boza to me, I say Cap Boza, but there's Nick and Joey, and I'm not sure which one's there. They all sound like Backstreet Boys to me. But Drake Jackson's going to thrive probably in Frisco, and they always draft a running back that turns to gold out of the 6th round or 7th round, right? That's just what they do. The Seahawks had a great draft, I thought, drafting Cross at tackle and taking Walker at running back and drafting Abraham, I think it was, out of Washington State. They had a good draft. They had a really good draft, and I think they're set up perfect for 2024 and 2025. That window is theirs right now. Unfortunately, we're in the 2022 window, and that window belongs to the Rams. I don't know if Pete Carroll's still going to be around. They're going to have to figure out the quarterback situation. But I do like their draft. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And then we look at the Rams. Before we look at the Rams, I just want to remind you, my name is Joe Tarosian. I do RamView. I try to do it daily, and I do it here on YouTube at joetsports.com, at Joe T Sports on YouTube. You could also follow me at joetarosian.com. I'm also on Twitter at JoeT13B and at Instagram, JoeT13B. I am a writer. I spent 21 years as a sports writer, helped establish Mid-Valley Sports, who they currently, that business started around my kitchen table, and now those guys are covering the Chargers full-time. So good for them. I left a year early before they came to the NFL. But I also write books. My most popular football book is Tangent Dreams, and you can find that on Amazon. Read the reviews before you buy, but if you buy, that'd be great. I'd love to hear from you. And it was a pretty successful book. Also, you can what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. Also, I work as a pastor at a small town, at a small church in Burbank, and that lets you know what my day gig is. So I'm pretty blessed in my life that I get to write and I get to speak about not just God, but I get to talk sports. So thank you for clicking on. And please hit subscribe, hit like, leave comments. I love to interact, one, to talk Rams football, but just to build the imprint and to keep doing this. It would be awesome if you could do that for me. Thank you so much. Speaking of the draft picks, here's the amazing thing. If you had at any point been following me, what I was doing is I was homogenizing all the draft picks, every mock draft I could find, from serious fans to the experts, and slotting them in 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. We'd see certain names repeat, names pop up, and names get real popular. Here's the most interesting thing, and I don't know how everyone's going to respond to this, because everyone has a tendency to see things the way they see it. I'd get up every morning and I'd click on Google or one of the search engines and type in Rams mock draft. I literally did that. And a lot of times you saw repeats. A lot of times you saw people just taking stuff from somebody else. But one name that never popped up was Logan Bruss. Logan Bruss never popped up anywhere. I had over 100 players on the list that I had regarding the Rams' potential draft picks, and Logan Bruss was nowhere. Should have known better. He's a Wisconsin guy, and Rams got 2 Wisconsin starters on their offensive line already, and Dave Edwards and Rob Havenstein. Of course, he's built like a Wisconsin kid, 6'5", 309. And, drafting a Wisconsin lineman is like drafting a Georgia defensive player, right? no one can fault you. And this guy at 6'5", 309, 104 overall looks like a really solid pick. And what you could say about the Rams picks overall is they just hit on depth every place they went. It wasn't, to me, there was not a head scratcher in this draft. Only that the fact that none of these names appeared on the Rams board except for maybe one. And but Logan Bruss could definitely be battling for a starting position. He doesn't need to be, but he could be. And his name and his presence just adds a lot of depth to the line. And so I'm anxious to see. I'm anxious to see how it plays out. And so this is really just a great pick for the Rams. And so also make sure we realize that Edwards and Havenstein are free agents next year, and it might soften the blow a little bit. With the second pick, their fourth round pick at number 142, the Rams reached. I hadn't seen this name anywhere in the third to fourth round range because I thought that's where the Rams would be drafting a corner. I hadn't seen Jacoby Durant out of South Carolina State pop up anywhere. The name that people were talking when you talked to Kobe was Kobe Bryant out of Cincinnati. I think people were in love with that name. Instead, they took it to Kobe Durant out of South Carolina State. And he's 5'10", 180. And he felt like a reach. And when you looked around at some of the experts, they were saying the Rams maybe reached a little bit here, but he's a really good athlete. And the Rams liked him and they grabbed him. And so, again, more depth in the secondary, in the cornerback room. At number 164, the Rams moved up, and this was really telling because I don't know if it was Rams Wire or someone else mentioned it. I guess it's not rocket science, but I want to give them credit because they thought it before I did, even though it's pretty obvious, but they did it first. Good for them. Is the Rams moved from 175 to 164 to draft Kyrene Williams out of Notre Dame. And again, this is another example of the Rams drafting somebody that maybe didn't do well. He ran slow at the combine, but the Rams kind of overlooking what the stats are talking about as far as the measurements and the tape, what that's saying, and just looking and saying, hey, did we take a football player? And of course, I know you've seen Kyrene Williams play this year because Notre Dame football is on every week. And we're always stuck watching Notre Dame football, and it was worth it to see the Rams draft him. And I don't get overly emotional. In fact, I'm accused of being insensitive sometimes. I like to see the players cut. I like the understanding that it's a difficult world, and we should see that when our young people want to aspire to play in the NFL, they should see that emotionally it could be as brutal as landing on the beach in Private Ryan, right? And then to see Kyrene Williams knowing he didn't have a good measurements, a good combine. And to see his emotions when he was drafted, you're just got to be happy for the kid, and you really just want to root for him and hope he excels. But I could definitely see Kyrene Williams getting into the rotation with Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, because he played at Notre Dame, so he played against top flight talent. With their sixth round pick, first pick in the sixth round, the Rams drafted Quentin Lake out of UCLA. He's very much a Jordan Fuller type. The Rams drafted Jordan Fuller, sixth round, 199 with the Tom Brady pick a couple years ago. Quentin Lake is 6'1", 201. He's the son of Carnell Lake, who probably should be considered for the Hall. He played 10 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Carnell Lake did. He was a linebacker at UCLA, became a safety in the NFL, played some corner, went to multiple Pro Bowls, was all pro 1 year. And he had a heck of a career as a second-round pick. Well, his son goes in the sixth round to the Rams. I think this is another great draft pick for the Rams. Again, look where they drafted Jordan Fuller. Look where they drafted Nick Scott, and the clicks they've gotten out of these guys. And so I'm excited to see Quentin Lake come in. With the second sixth-round pick at 212, the Rams drafted their only Senior Bowl participant in the entire draft. The Rams are heavy on Senior Bowl participators, but this year they only drafted one, and that was Darian Kendrick. And guess where he went to school? Oh, yeah, that's right, Georgia. He felt like for some people that he would have gone higher, but he's a bit of a risk. The Rams must have been assured because he had some off-field issues, and he's a gambler kind of. But I think they felt good about him. He runs 6 foot, 194, and so the Rams drafted him. Hey, he went to Georgia, so give him a shot. And again, more depth in the cornerback room. You add him to Jalen Ramsey, who's set apart, but you add him to the others that are in there now. Troy Hill, you add him to David Long Jr. You add him to Robert Rochelle, Grant Healy. You talk about some of these guys the Rams have coming back, and he's got a shot to make the team. And I think all these guys have shots to make the team. Otherwise, they wouldn't be drafted. The Rams dealt their 6th round pick at 218, and they produced another 7th rounder, and his name is Daniel Hardy at number 235. And Daniel Hardy is an edge, played at Montana State, had a great FCS career, 6'3", 240, big motor, a lot of sacks. He's an edge player. But I get the feeling he was considered a reach by a lot of experts. I look at him as a exceptional special teamer. In fact, you can look at a lot of these guys here that they are going to round out the Rams special teams unit as well as play their positions. Same can be said for Russ Yeast out of Kansas State, number 7, 253 overall. Nick Scott was number 7, 243 overall. Yeast runs 5'10", 195. He looks like a special teamer to me, but you never know. The Rams do get clicks. And then the one that's intriguing here is the Rams' final pick at 261. They drafted offensive tackle out of Michigan State, AJ Akiri, 6'7", 320. 6'7", 320. I've heard multiple things about him. He's too tall and too thin. You're not going to get leverage on him. He's not fast enough, but he seems to have all of the agility and everything. I think it's a great pick. Again, it's a pick for depth. So when you look at these draft picks, you see 2 safeties, 2 corners, and the reacquisition of Troy Hill. We could talk more about that tomorrow. So the Rams answered depth questions. The thing about Troy Hill, he comes back, he pretty much still knows the system because it pretty much still is Brandon Staley's system. He had a great 2020 for the Rams, not so great 2021 in Cleveland. He's cheap, and so it was a good move by the Rams. There's depth at corner. The corner issue is solved in terms of depth, and the Rams are going to be okay. However, with the secondary picks, 2 corners plus Hill, we can officially probably close the door on Dante Dion's return, which I was hoping that was going to happen, but I don't see it. Of course, anything's possible, but I don't see it. And it is highly unlikely, as reports were this morning, that Tyrann Mathieu is likely going to sign with the New Orleans Saints. I don't think that hurts the Rams at all. It saves them a buckets of money and keeps them in the game as we go and progress into the season. If they need to make a move, they can make a move because the Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald restructures are pending, and it'll give them free space in the cap. So those are those thoughts. One of the couple things to notice is the Rams didn't draft any interior defensive linemen at all. So behind Aaron Donald, room by himself, but behind the free agents to be in Greg Gaines and Ashawn Robinson, the Rams are coming back with Michael Hecht, who's gotten playing time, Marquise Copeland, who they like and who's gotten playing time, Jonah Williams, who's gotten playing time. Last year's, I think, 3rd round pick, Bobby Brown. I think he was 4th round. Bobby Brown III, who didn't get much playing time last year, but he runs 3 spins plus. I think he runs about 325. He's a space eater. He's Ashawn Robinson in his youth, so they're going to see about him. And then the Rams have also coming in an undrafted free agent named Elijah Garcia out of Rice, who runs 6'5", 302. So the Rams didn't draft any defensive linemen. They're going to dance with what they have, and they did sign a free agent out of Rice, Elijah Garcia, to see what they got. Also, I thought it was interesting. They didn't really draft an off-ball linebacker, but they did bring a couple in. They did bring one in, Jake Hummel, out of Iowa State, but they did not draft anybody. So they were feeling comfortable going into the season. Bobby Wagner, Ernest Jones, and Trayvon Howard. It'll be interesting again to see, Christian Roseboom is still there and see what else they do in free agency. But they didn't make any moves for that. They didn't draft a wide receiver. They didn't draft a tight end, which a lot of people thought with Johnny Munt leaving. But I think it speaks to the development and what they saw at the end of the year with Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins. I think they feel their tight end room is pretty deep. As far as undrafted free agents they brought in, along with Elijah Garcia, They brought in 3 defensive backs: Daniel Isom out of Washington State, Jerry McVay, a safety, Duron Lowe out of Liberty. They brought in 2 other edge guys: Florida State's Kiera Thomas, North Dakota State, Braden Thomas. I mentioned Hummel at linebacker. They brought in a kicker, and this is funny. He was a Senior Bowl participant, Cameron Dicker. Yeah, Cameron Dicker, the kicker. Okay, yeah, they brought him in out of Texas, Pete, and probably just be a camp leg to help make sure Matt Gay doesn't overdo it. So we'll see. We don't see anything other than practice squad at most for Cameron Dicker. The Rams also signed Jack Snyder, guard, San Jose State, 6'5", 310. They also drafted Georgia back Roger Carter. I saw a lot of buzz out of Roger Carter in terms of fan base and other writers that, he's going to be a special team gem for the Rams. And, maybe he's a Nelson Spruce candidate as we get to the summer and into preseason. We're hitting the 20-minute mark here. On this date in Ram history, Norm Van Brocklin, the Dutchman, he passed away on May the 2nd, 1983, at only the age of 57. He's my age. And Van Brocklin was a Ram legend, led them to many title appearances, was key on their 1951 team. Bob Waterfield started most of that game against the Browns, but it was Van Brocklin's 73-yard touchdown pass to Tom Fears that won the game and the title for the Rams over the Cleveland Browns in 1951, 24-17. Van Brocklin, of course, went on to Philly and became the quarterback there, and he ran the offense, Chuck Bednarik, and they won their title in 1960. In fact, one of the things about Norm Van Brocklin, 2 things I want to mention about Norm Van Brocklin, is he still holds the single game yardage passing record in the NFL. September 28th, 1951, against the New York Yankees. The Yankees at the Coliseum, he threw for over 554 yards, plus 100-yard games for Vitamin Smith, Tom Fears, and Elroy Hirsch that day. But 554 yards, even with all the stuff that's liberally supporting the offense, no one is yet to pass that record as a jet flies overhead. And so eventually in 1958, kind of a Tom Brady thing, is Norm Van Brocklin retired in I think it was January, but then decided he wanted to play, but he didn't want to play for Sid Gilman and the Rams anymore, and so the Rams traded him for 2 players and a draft pick. They sent him to Philly. They got Buck Lansford, Jimmy Harris, but I got a Jimmy Harris football card. But they also got a first-round pick, and that was before the modern era, and they got a first-round pick in 1959. And they used that pick, number 2 overall, to draft Dick Scooter Bass, who became the Rams' key running back through the 1960s in the first Ram to rush, I think, for 1,000 yards. So put that in your pipe and smoke. And Norm Van Brocklin was parlayed into Dick Bass. And also born actually not born on this day, but signed by the Rams on this day was Cliff Frazier, former UCLA defensive tackle. And Cliff Frazier was drafted number 41 overall in the 1976 draft by the Kansas City Chiefs. And he was traded before he could even play a down with them to Philly. And then Philly sent him to the Rams for a conditional pick. Rams cut him. And he spent the 1977 season back in KC. He started about He started 14 games, started 12 games out of 14, had an average year, and then retired. He became an actor. You might know him. He was in First and 10, the HBO show about the NFL, kind of a comedy show. And then he was also played the guy Monroe in North Dallas 40. And it was on this day that the Rams signed him. And the reason I bring that up is that if you go back to Dick Vermeil's days with the UCLA Bruins, and there was that very collegial atmosphere that Vermeil created when he ended up going to the Rose Bowl after the 75 season, beat Ohio State. That was, Eddie Ayers, Wendell Tyler, John Shara, Wally Henry, those guys. And then Cliff Frazier was part of that. Oscar Edwards, Dr. Death, who eventually was signed by the Rams. And Cliff Frazier was all part of that. Jerry Robinson. And so those names became pretty familiar to most fans around here. And of course, Dick Vermeil was running around hugging everybody until he took the job in Philly. And then even though Cliff Frazier landed in Philly, they still didn't really hold on to him because he just wasn't maybe NFL ready. But he had a nice acting career. Unfortunately, Cliff Frazier passed away in August of 2014 of lung cancer. So the Rams made some great picks. I'm excited about this draft. I think it really bodes well. And what you're always looking for the Rams is when they're drafting is who are they going to parlay into comp picks down the road. And we can see there's players right now, Nick Scott, Taylor Rapp, that might not be back next year. David Long Jr. might not be back next year. Ashawn Robinson or Greg Gaines or both. Bobby Brown and some of these other guys are really going to have to develop for both Gaines and Ashawn Robinson not to be there, but there you go. And all that stuff just adds to the Rams draft comp pick pool. And so it'll be interesting to see who develops out of this draft. And basically what you're looking for in that 6th and 7th round where they drafted some of these guys is who's going to give you clicks. Now, they can give you major clicks like Fuller and Scott did for the Rams, or they can just give you those little clicks like a Ben Skoranek. At a key moment, they contribute and do something profound. And so yeah, it's really exciting. Look at the Rams draft. Might not be the sexiest of all drafts where everyone's going, oh my gosh, it's not like Baltimore's or New York's, but it's a draft that a championship team makes as it builds depth. And I think we can be excited about that as Rams fans. All right. Hey, we have finished 26 minutes here. I went much longer than I wanted to go, but thank you so much for clicking on to RamView. Please hit subscribe. Check us out on Spotify. We're having a very slow start there, but I get it. Right now, I'm only on Spotify, but if you have access to Spotify, subscribe to RamView because we're taking the audio of this and putting it on podcast so that you can have it while you drive. All right. God bless. Take care, and we will talk to you soon.